How can India ensure nutritional security of our citizens? How will we fight climate change? Will we ever find out the origin of SARS-CoV-2? If these questions occupy your mind space, join a group of like-minded peers and understand the public policy underpinnings of Indian life sciences. Apply now for Takshashila Institution's 4-week life science policy course, which begins from the 14th of September. Till then, enjoy this episode.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All Things Policy. I am Mariam Azeemuddin, Assistant Program Manager at Takshashila Institution, and joining us today is Anisree Suresh, Research Associate at Takshashila Institution. Today, our discussion is on AI and trade and how AI can impact India's trade opportunities. Welcome, Anisree, and looking forward to having a great discussion with you.
Thank you, Mariam. I'm really looking forward to this conversation too. Really happy to be here discussing this very important topic.
All right. So AI is such a buzzword these days, and it seems like it's going to change everything. I mean, including how countries like India trade with the world. How do you think AI will impact international trade?
Yeah, Mariam, actually, it's a very interesting question because, we know that there's a lot of technological revolution that's going around, and the ongoing technological innovation and revolution is bringing a new era of prospects where, progress is like fundamentally altering how we live and how we work and everything. So while the larger regulatory and policy environment around artificial intelligence, there's a lot of conversation going around, how AI impact people in a security perspective, the privacy perspective, and everything. And there's a lot of conversation from a policy perspective, from an innovative perspective that's going around. So it's also important for us to think about the issues that are specific to trade and AI. So, we all know that AI is like a very enabling technology that has a very huge impact on the global economy as well as the international trade. So, combined with I feel like the business process oriented automation and AI can also make sure there is an efficient data flow exchanges. And there is also a lot of conversation coming around how AI can lift barriers to international trade as well as stimulate growth in global electronic commerce and also allow for better predictions and association to inform policy decision. So I think as we discuss more about it, we will come up with more examples about how AI is influencing international trade and in a long term, how it's going to shape India's trade prospects as well.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And it's really interesting to think of how AI and trade are connected. I mean, how exactly do they correlate is I really wonder. And I would like to, be thing on that.
Yeah, actually, Mariam, it's a very interesting. So, AI is shaping and making an influential voice in all sectors of our life. And as we know, this AI or the artificial intelligence, they can actually process a large amount of data, right, and recognize patterns in it. So, based on these patterns, AI algorithms can interpret the data or take some predefined action such as either create predictions or classify data based on their features or suggest or perform some automated action. So that's basically the function of AI. So ultimately what we are looking at is how AI can potentially reshape the future workforce sector. So we all know that there's a lot of conversation how AI is going to change the workforce, the labor force in general, and through that there will be definite some impact on the global economy through automation and robotization of repeatable routine tasks and process. So there is definitely a productivity increase. And it's also going to be a topic of great interest for us because there's certain kind of this automation and efficient data flows between countries, the cross-border trade and everything will be definitely picked up by this AI. And it would also, again, like I said, it would lift barriers to international trade, and there will be definite growth in the global e-commerce space and everything. So in a way that it's going to definitely change the global value chain. It's definitely going to change how we interact with other countries, how we try.
Right. We already see the change.
Yes, yeah.
We do see it.
Yes, like we can already see like a lot of changes that AI is bringing, definitely.
I mean, AI is here to stay, and that's something we all should
Yes, for sure.
to work around with. All right. So AI in cross-border trade is something I've been hearing more about of lately, and especially after COVID-19.
Yeah.
It seems like the pandemic really has pushed people to
Yes.
explore AI's potential in this area, and this is something that's really interesting to
Exactly.
know about.
So yes, actually, like you rightly mentioned, the interest in AI has been growing steadily since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic, especially in how AI systems can improve the efficiency and robustness of the global supply chains, because we saw a lot of problems arising during the pandemic regarding the global supply chains, how credible they are, how reliable they are, and all those things when such an geopolitical issues emerges. So, and we were trying to see how we can mitigate the risk that's associated with the global value chain, that because we are very much reliant on the global value chains and the security of global value chain. So what pandemic did was it brought attention to the fact that the scope and potential for using AI to further facilitate the cross-border trade. So it's actually far greater than what we previously thought, and some international actors have been already began investigating and using AI, particularly in the customs domain, for the enhancement and transparency of procedures and for better risk management and profiling. And it's widely used in the when in the logistics sector, and also for it's used for compliance, where AI can be used in automation in post clearance audits and controls, and it's also used in detection of misuse of concession, including the tariff concession between the different countries and everything. So for a normal human being, it's very difficult to track everything, because on a daily basis we have a lot of trade agreements coming up, a lot of trade discussions happening. So there is new rules, new regulations, new compliances and everything. But using AI for automation and all those things, all these kind of compliance activities can be put it in automation, and that saves a lot of time and energy.
I mean, I do agree, Anisree, but I was just wondering, there must be challenges too as well, isn't it? It can't all be smooth sailing. So, what do you think could be the challenges that we could face? How is this going to perform?
Like you rightly mentioned, definitely there are a lot of challenges when it comes to AI. And there are a lot of conversation already happening upon on trade and technology and all those things. And it's actually the purpose of the economist to have a clear understanding about the how we can improve through our understanding of the factors that's influencing trade and the consequences of the free flow of goods and services between countries.
Right.
So right now we know there's a lot of issues, concerns about rising trade deficits and their implications for employment, production, prices, and wages. So understanding and predicting future patterns in trade is a high priority.
Right.
So now you look at it, the AI in trade, for example, traditional economic models can aim to be a reliable predictors, but artificial intelligence techniques can allow for better predictions and association to inform policy decision. So international trade sector has begun to rapidly adopt the use of ethical AI in international trade negotiations, using e-negotiations and all those things. So we are using AI for automatic repetitive process, and how to learn how to classify products easily. And we are using it also for detecting abnormalities in your data processing, such as by flagging up problems in the data flow and pointing out what data you might be missing, or highlighting where areas of risk in your business operation and all those things. But looking at the challenges is mainly coming from the aspect that you need to make sure that when you're the global value chains are evolving, and so there needs to be a kind of a significant resources necessary to make AI possible. So you need data, you need algorithms, you need talent, the global talent and expertise for this. And this fact can sometimes limit market concentration to some players. So the largest companies and countries can amass the most data about consumers and have the resources to create specific AI. So like that might create certain kind of like market concentration. But I think overall in a long term, that kind of issues will be addressed, and data will be flowing freely across the world. And generally, like I said, like there's a lot of conversation already on the ethical and responsible use of AI, like making sure that it's data is used in a fair way, and it's like accountable, and there's a lot of like conversation on data privacy and all those things.
Right. And that's interesting, Anisree. And, overall, AI increases productivity, and we're seeing that result. But there are predictions AI will accelerate the transition towards, service economies with automation. Also, AI will emphasize particular skills of workers, is what I was just having a thought in my mind. And this probably would lead to expansion of share of services in production as well as in international trade. So, how would you think AI acts as a transformative force in existing global value chains? That's something I really would like to be enlightened upon.
Yeah. So there's a lot of conversations on how various factors are influencing global value chains. So artificial intelligence definitely stands to have a transformative impact on international trade. So already specific applications is already being applied in areas such as data analytics, and transition services are reducing and barriers to trade and all those things. Yet it's also like kind of understood that AI could also create trends towards onshoring of production. Basically what happens is like broader automation opportunities, as well as you have like 3D printing and all those kind of technologies are developing, that could reduce the need for extended supply chains that we have today, particularly those that rely on large pools of low cost labor. So the result could accelerate the process of like something called the premature industrialization in developing countries. So I'll explain what it is. So as global value chains is like expanded in the 1990s and early 2000, so many decisions were like about where to locate this production were based on like aspects like labor cost, particularly in industries producing labor intensive goods and services. So it counter to popular perceptions, today only like 18% of goods trade is based on the labor cost arbitrage.
Right.
Okay. So, in other words, like over 80% of today's global goods trade is not from low wage country to a high wage country. Moreover, the share of trade based on labor cost arbitrage. So, it's not anymore dependent on whether these countries, the production units are based on countries, whether they're providing a lower wage. So like that has completely changed. So like the labor intensive goods manufacturing and the global value chain, that kind of trends has been like completely changed over the years. So this mainly reflects rising wages in developing countries. So in the future, however, automation and AI may like kind of amplify this trend, kind of transforming this labor intensive manufacturing into capital intensive manufacturing. So this shift will have an important implications about like how low income countries participate in global value chain, and AI is definitely going to amplify, accelerate this trend in the coming years. And also like AI is already having an impact on the development and management of global value chain. Like we already discussed, it's going to improve the predictions of future trends such as changes in consumer demand, and to better manage complex and dispersed production unit. And so that's going to improve the overall efficiency of global value chains. Like for example, warehouse management and demand prediction and improving the accuracy, all these things can be really improved with using AI. And I think, like you mentioned in the question also, like Mariam, that definitely there's going to be change from goods oriented trade to more of a service oriented trade. That's also something that we can predict a lot in the coming years, because like you rightly mentioned, like it's going to be like skill specified. The labor is going to be very skill specified instead of wage specified. So definitely that's also something that we can foresee.
Very true. And while we're discussing the prospects of AI in trade and all the multiple factors that we've just spoken about, I'm also wondering whether it possesses any challenges to the international trade. Like we've mentioned international trade multiple times in our conversation, but what are the challenges to international trade? is what we need to also discuss.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, like definitely there's a lot of like, how you managing the data for AI is something that we have to look at it. So I think there's a lot of like global conversations that's happening around. We're like looking into various guidelines of using ethical and responsible usage of AI. And I think what we can do to address those challenges also, like definitely as we see that there is a transformation to digital trade that's also happening, and AI is going to amplify that. So like, we have to make sure that like, we are transitioned towards a market space that accommodates these kind of trends. So we have to definitely adopt open digital infrastructures that allow multiple stakeholders to use it for their service and content needs, and establish governance rules and invest in government enforcement mechanism that seeks to balance platform control with the necessary incentive for platform participants to engage with the platform and generate value for one another. So the expansion of platform ecosystem at a global scale has created many possibilities for online trade between parties in different parts of the world, an important factor for the scaling up of this small and medium enterprises. So along with making sure that there is a digital market space and the trade is moving, and also we have to make sure that AI, again, I think the core foundation here is like the ethical and responsible use of AI. So there are like various principles that we have to accumulate, including, again, like I said, like fairness, interpretability, and accountability, data privacy, and all those aspects. Yeah.
Right. And regulation is so crucial, especially as AI continues to evolve. Um, it seems like the laws are always playing catch up with the technology. So, do you think regulations will help in addressing these challenges and make sure that AI is being used ethically and responsibly?
um Regulation in the sense, like I'm not sure like how much regulation will be able to manage various challenges with it. But again, like as countries grapple with the different aspects of the technology, the proliferation of like national and international regulatory instruments on AI is like likely to rise in the coming years. So this also raises questions about the relationship between regulation and innovation. So we have to find a right balance between promoting innovation, ensuring that it's undertaken with appropriate regulatory oversight, and that can be a very difficult thing also. So it'll be like, important that reforms aim to help ensure that regulations remain responsive to changes in AI technologies, but at the same time promoting the economic and social benefits of such technology while minimizing their risk. That's the ultimate purpose of the regulations, right? So, you have to make sure there is an effective cooperation between regulators and innovators. That's a key point that we have to keep in mind. But like, I'm not sure like how much regulations will be able to, catch up with the technology innovation and all those things. But what we can see, like, make sure that there's a, foundational principle that we are following that make sure that we are using AI ethically and responsibly.
Right. Also, Anisree, the most important aspect to look here is how it impacts India's trade prospects. And how can we make sure that India is taking maximum advantage of the trade opportunities that AI offers? So, with all this in mind, where do you also see India stand in global AI and the trade landscape? What are our prospects?
Okay, so definitely, like we spoke earlier, there is definitely AI is gonna transformatively change the global value chains. There will be certain trends that will be happening. There will be a lot of onshoring trends that will be happening, and the compliance cost and everything will be reduced. That would allow a lot of trade to happen. And like we discussed, there's gonna be a lot of like labor movement that's based on skills of the talent that's migrating. And also like there's a lot of like movement that's going to happen in the service sector. So like it's going to be more service oriented trade that would be happening. So these are the aspects that we identified, right? So India has a lot of advantage in all these areas that we discussed. Definitely, India has a great service sector, and India's migration based on like talent, that's like skilled talent, is also something that we can take a lot of like maximum advantage of. And so like there's definitely a lot of prospects here that India can utilize if India, like, make sure that there's certain kind of readjustments is happening in terms of its strategy towards its trade. So one is reassess India has to reassess where to compete along the value chain, what areas that we should focus on, what are our competitive advantaged areas, like where do we have a lot of advantage in terms of trade. So definitely we can utilize our skilled talent, making sure there is a lot of investment coming into innovation and all those things, and we can utilize our service sector, which we are really good at, which we have a comparative advantage on. And we also have to consider how to capture value from the services. So across multiple value chain, including the manufacturing sector, the more value is going to come from services. So there we have to capture that value. Third is we also have to focus on the new automation technologies, which is changing factor cost and expanding set of risk and the increasing importance of speed to market in some industries. This all are driving localization in many goods producing value chains. So that's also something that we are. So we have to capture the onshoring trends in the global value chain. So as a result, it may make sense to place production near key consumer markets around the world, and India is one of the key consumer markets, so that should be some of our selling points as well.
Right. All right. So that brings me to another important point on how AI affect jobs in India. And we always hear about automation taking away jobs, but there is another side to this, right? And one thing we did understand even from our previous conversations is that AI will have a transformative impact on the future of work. And in order for India to make most out of these opportunities, we also have to have a keen understanding of the future of work and utilize India's labor force accordingly. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah. So definitely. So all these things is coming to the point that definitely AI has a transformative impact on the future of work as well. But it's not as disruptive as we think. So technological disruptions potentially would reshape the employment landscape in India. And possible solutions include automating certain dangerous jobs, making income generating opportunities accessible online, and better matching workers with opportunities through digital platforms. So while India's ranking has improved on the world ease of doing business index and has implemented several reforms, there are certain hurdles that remain for India to utilize this change in the future of work. So these include you have to make sure that there's a lot of onshoring trends that's happening, right? So we also have to make sure that there's a lot of developments in terms of easing the regulatory barriers and in that's associated with starting a business or dealing with construction permits, registering a property, paying taxes, and all those things. Also, the future of work would look there's a lot of technologies that's going to change the big data analytics and how we look at climate change, how we look at all this aspect. So there's definitely need to be a lot of conversations on making sure that there is a free movement of labor and ideas across the borders. So that's the ultimate thing that we have to do to make max out of all these opportunities.
Right. And it sounds like AI will have a pretty broad impact, not just on trade, but on the economy as a whole. And, can you also explain the impact of AI on the economy in general? And we could just have a quick thing on that and also suggest few policy pathways for India's future trade and economy.
Yeah, I think one thing that I forgot to underline earlier was there is a notion of creative discretion. So this is a theory by the Schumpeter formula, it's called. So there basically we use in the dominant discourse on the impact of technological change on employment. The argument is that markets evolve through technological disruptions. In other words, this happens when the creation of new employment opportunities compensate for the destruction of some jobs. So, suggesting a churn, economists basically argue that emerging technologies will erode certain jobs and create new jobs. So, we have a lot of public anxiety about robots taking over human operations. So their argument is based on a faulty assumption that the amount of work is fixed in any given economy, which is not the case. So with the changes in the technology, the new jobs will be emerging. So, the future of work helps us to understand and prepare for technological advancement and its impact on the job market and other things. So, by anticipating the changes that automation brings, the artificial intelligence and all those things brings, what we can do is policymakers and individuals and organizations can proactively adapt, and what they can make informed decisions to stay relevant and competitive. So that way you make the an advantage of the prospects offered by artificial intelligence. And definitely, like you said, it has economic implications as well. So what they it's going to change the nature of the employment, so that will impact the employment rates, income distributions and the economic growth. And so what we can do is we can understand how it's going to change the future of work. With that kind of understanding, we can try to adapt as much as we can, and policymakers and economists can help develop strategies to address potential challenges and leverage opportunities that arise from these kind of transformation. I think if you look at it, the impact of most technologies on job is expected to be a net positive if you calculate it over the next few years. So definitely big data analytics, climate change, and environmental management technologies, encryption and cybersecurity are all expected to be the biggest drivers of job growth in the coming years. So we agriculture technologies, digital platforms and apps, e-commerce, digital trade, and AI. This all going to be create certain kind of labor market disruption, but that will be creating a net positive job market also. So it's going to create a lot of opportunities for people. So in a way, that also going to influence the trade also in a long term. So what we can do is adapt to the changes, make sure that our population is competitive, and have the right kind of skill set. So you upskill your population and adapt with the changes in technologies, because although it creates certain kind of disruptions in the market, it also opens up a lot more opportunities in terms of employment and all those things. And like we said, AI is definitely going to have a lot of impact on trade in the long term as well, in terms of automation and all those things that we discussed.
I mean, sure, Joe, it's here to stay and it's going to surely have a great impact. So let's see how it goes. And we just welcome AI into our lives, and we're just going to be coexisting with it, is what I say. So
Yes.
thank you, Anisree, for sharing your insights on this great topic and this discussion. It's sure that needed to be addressed. And before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts that you would like your listeners to, look forward to, or we could wrap it up?
Yeah. So basically nothing much, Mariam. I think like you said, AI is going to stay slow. And what I want to conclude with saying that AI definitely has an impact on trade, and it will bring certain kind of changes in reshoring and more of a service sector oriented trade and all those things. And these are areas that India can actually take a lot of advantage in, because we have certain kind of competitiveness or comparative advantage in those sectors. So our idea is how we are going to strategize ourselves in a way that we are taking maximum advantage of the ongoing trends that AI is gonna bring into the global value chains and everything.
Right, absolutely. So thank you. Thank you for this great insight. And
Yeah,
I'm sure.
thank you so much, Mariam. It was a very interesting discussion.
Thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Stay tuned. Until next time, take care, stay informed.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.